Hello, welcome to Yoga with Megan. As you can see, I have my friend Sam Bones here with me today because I'm doing a practice for the sacrum, and I have lovingly named this one my grumpy sacrum practice because I do it quite often. I have what's called a hot sacrum, referred to as a hot sacrum in yoga, which means the ligaments around the sacrum are a little bit stretched out, and so what happens is the muscles, the glutes and some of the muscles around the side of the sacrum will tend to tighten too much, so they don't want to release, which causes pain. And I can feel that going on right now. So I brought Mr. Bones in just to give you a little visual of what your sacrum is, but while we're doing this, eventually I'm going to have you lay down. The other thing is if you have a block, you're going to need a block today and also a strap. So Mr. Bones, if you would please turn for me. So raise your hand out there if you know what the sacrum is. I'm going to bring Mr. Bones a little bit closer in. So when we are first born, we have the lumbar spine here, which most people are familiar with because we know low back. You know, a lot of people have low back pain. But sacral pain will be a little bit different than low back pain. So the sacrum is this triangular bone that fuses after we're born. It's vertebrae that fuse, and you can see it points down and it ends up with your tailbone down here. So generally you can tell the difference between sacral pain and low back pain because low back pain is literally in the vertebrae, the curve, the arch of your lumbar spine, versus sacral pain will be more down in the hip area on either side of the butt cheek, and it'll radiate out oftentimes into the butt cheeks. So if you want to take a feel for yourself and feel where your sacrum is versus your lumbar spine, just knowing those two areas can be very helpful for you. So I'm going to take Sam Bones out of the picture here, but remember, get that visual for yourself and go ahead and lay down now. And I want you to draw your knees into your chest and begin to roll around. On the floor with the knees in, and think of just giving yourself a little sacral massage. So it's a triangle that points downward into the tailbone. So you got a long edge at the top of the pelvis, and in fact, it's one of the bones of your pelvis, right? Attaching the pelvis is actually your two hip bones and your sacrum, and you're just rolling around on that space. Taking a moment, and then coming down with your feet on the floor. So what we'll do first is almost like a chiropractic adjustment for your sacrum to get it back into place. If, like for me, it gets out of place, and then we'll do some strengthening into that new alignment. So with feet on the floor in constructive rest, begin to take some belly breaths, relax into your abdomen, and then sense where your feet are on the floor. And we're going to do the first one called walking in place. So we'll start with just the left leg because you can see that. Sense your foot where it is on the floor. I'm going to move my hands to the sides. And as you breathe in, you're going to press the left heel and ball of the foot into the floor and gently press that thigh bone forward. So you can see I get a little arch through my left side, and I'm lengthening through my low back on that left side, and then I exhale and release. I'll do just that left side a few times, and inhaling, pressing the thigh forward, and exhaling and releasing. So think you're gently stretching the left side of the sacral area and then releasing it back to neutral. For me, this is my grumpy side, so this feels really good. Let's do one more on the left side. You can also stop and hold and breathe into it. Feel that length, and you're pressing into the foot, shin bone and kneecap coming forward, and then releasing. Now we'll do the right leg, so I'll switch around for you. Doing that right side, feel where your foot is touching the floor and the ball of the foot, and inhale and press forward. So think not just the leg, but the whole hip is going forward, and that sacrum is tilting a little bit, and exhale, release. Inhale, press forward, and exhale, release. And this is always a practice for you in that if you don't want to do it to the breath, that's okay. I encourage the breath movement because then we keep it more rhythmic and smoother. So inhaling and pressing, and exhale, slow release. But if you just want to explore your range of motion, do one more with that right leg, and then relax. So we're going to take a similar movement, but we're going to alternate and we're going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to continue with the right leg first. So now as I press forward, I'm also going to tip onto the big toe side of my right foot and push the right thigh bone and kneecap towards the front left corner of the mat. So just a little bit bigger rotation, and exhale back. Now I'll do the left leg, tipping slightly onto the big toe side, pressing that left thigh bone and kneecap towards the front right corner. So still that pressure forward, but now an inward tipping and releasing. So front of the camera will look like this, alternating sides. Inhale, reaching one thigh bone forward. Exhale, release. Inhale, opposite thigh bone forward. So lengthening through one side of your waist at a time. I'm going to turn back here again. If you'd like, we can add the arms to this. Let's all do left leg together. So as you're inhale, pressing into the big toe side, lengthening that left thigh or femur bone, you reach your left arm overhead, you'll get a little bit more arching and lengthening through the upper body too. Exhale, relax arm, relax leg. Inhale, right side. Press inward and forward. Exhale, relax. If you'd like to add your head to this, you can gently let your head roll towards the arm that's stretching overhead and relaxing. So I think of this as just walking in place with the knees bent. You can do one breath for movement or stop anywhere along the way. But think of that sacral bone. Every time you come back to exhalation, it's relaxed and resting on the earth. And you're just tilting it and lengthening one side at a time. Arms will create a little more extension through the sides of the body. Let's do one more there. And relax. All right. You're welcome in between to hug your knees into your chest and give your sacrum another little massage. Or you might want to take a full body yawn, hug the muscles to the bones, let your back arch tighten, and exhale. Sigh it all out. All right, this next position, if your legs aren't long, go ahead and take them out. Your right leg is going to stay long. Your left foot is going to come to the floor. And this one I call hip hikes. It's one of the movements or planes of the pelvis movements. So if you imagine that you have a rubber band on your left hip, or if you could even imagine that you're holding on to your pants and right on that left hip, your belt loop. And as you're inhaling, you're going to not lift the hip off the floor, but slide the hip towards the left armpit. So it's not a lift, but a slide. And then release. So slide the hip towards your armpit. You'll feel your left waist shorten and your right waist lengthen. And exhale, release. I'm going to get my arm out of the way. Inhale, slide and shorten. And exhale and let go. And where the last one was a movement from the leg, try to initiate this one from the hip and the waist. So you're shortening your left waist. What you're doing is you're tightening the left side around the sacrum, using those muscles, contracting them. You might feel that tightness through the buttocks on the left side and then the release. But also notice how you'll feel a lengthening through the right side. Just sensing that lengthening. So for me, this is actually the more uncomfortable side because I'm shortening the left side, which is already tight. It's stuck in this tight muscular pattern. But I'm doing it just for you. If this feels okay, we can add to this. So you can take your left arm to your side, and as you're inhaling and drawing the hip towards your armpit, you can draw your armpit towards your hip and really shorten that side even more. And exhale and let it go. So that's going to focus more on the contraction through the left side. If I want to focus more on the lengthening through the right side, I can take my right arm overhead, wherever it's comfortable, and gently reach through the right arm as I reach my left arm towards my foot. So arms are reaching in opposite direction, creating length through the right side and shortening the left side. And head can roll. So inhale, reach the left armpit and shoulder towards one another. Contract that side. Exhale, let go. Or think inhale, lengthen the right side. And letting go. Do a few more on your own, just exploring. You can always stop and hold at your end point. So feel that tilting of the pelvis. The left hip lifts and the right hip drops. We'll do one more. And then relax. Let the head come back to center. Once again, you can bring your legs in. I like to roll around, say thank you to my sacrum. And then feet back to the floor, knees bent. This time the left leg will go long. You can just shake it out, let it relax. If this pulls on your low back, please feel free to put a bolster underneath your knee. So now you're going to see more of the lengthening side since I'm facing the opposite direction, but imagine holding your right belt loop and not lifting the right hip off the floor, but sliding the right hip towards the right armpit on inhale, and then exhaling, releasing. So you really want to move from your hip and your waist. So with one side, you may have a lot more sensation. For me, this left side is the gripper muscles. They're tight. They don't want to let go. So I go slow and easy because when I'm lifting my right hip, that left side should be stretching, but it's arguing with me just a little bit. So you may find some of those arguments. Just listen without telling yourself stories. And I'm squeezing the right hip towards my armpit. If that's going okay, I can take that right hand down at my side. As I inhale, I'm drawing the armpit towards the hip and the hip towards the armpit, making more of a curve through the spine, a lateral curve. You'll feel that right side tighten, the left side lengthen. Exhale, let go. So that would focus more on the contraction through the right side, so waking up those right side muscles. If you want to focus more on lengthening through the left side, you could take your left arm overhead and then inhale, reach slightly through the left arm as you reach the right arm forward. Right hip towards the armpit. Exhale, let go. So just feel how your pelvis is tilting one way and then the other. Or coming back to center. Inhale, right hip, right shoulder reach. Exhale, release. Just let your head roll along for the ride. We'll do one more. I could do about 10 more on this side because, as I said, this is my grumpy side. You could take a hold at any one of these. So for me, just stopping and contracting that right side and letting that left side completely release into the earth underneath me. Feel the length through the low back, or actually the sacral area. And then letting that go. All right, once again, feet come up. This time, let's just take some windshield wipers. Take your hands out to your sides as you exhale, let your knees fall one way. Inhale, lift the knees back up. And exhale, knees the other way. Just letting them flop back and forth. So this is all part of the realignment. And then coming back to the center point. Draw your knees into your chest for a moment. Stretch out the low back if that feels okay, and then feet back down to the floor. So this is another way that we realign. You're going to lift your legs or feet up off the floor and just take your legs so they're straight up and down. This one you won't be able to see, but I'll do my best at explaining what happens here. I want to lengthen my tailbone, so if I feel a big arch under my low back, lengthen my tailbone towards the floor, get the low back down to the floor so it's flatter. Then I'm going to put my left hand to the back of my left thigh and my right hand to the front of my right thigh, okay? So we're going to go in opposite directions with the legs. Think of where your hands are and begin to press the back of the left thigh into the left hand. Press the front of the right thigh into the right hand. So it's like your left leg is trying to go forward and your right leg is trying to go back. And this is just a way to just breathe into your sacrum. So sometimes we do this with a bar between the thighs. That works well too, but you can just use, this is a quick fix for me, I just use my hands pressing the back of the left thigh into my left hand. It might be closer to you, that's okay, but still press it forward, and not just the thigh, think of that whole left hip going forward, and the right hip and thigh coming towards your chest, towards your head. And just breathe there for a few breaths. So this is my side that feels really good because I need to release that left side, lengthen it, and then let it come down. You can just let your knees fall together and feet wide. Breathe into the center space of your pelvis for a moment. So sometimes we only do one side. If you know that you have one side that's the cranky tight side, that would be the leg that you push forward. So my left side is my cranky side, so what we just did would be my one side. Otherwise, let's go ahead for today and do the other side. Lift your feet up off the floor. So now your right hand is going to go to the back of the right thigh and left hand to the front of the left thigh. Start with one leg first. Press the back of the right thigh into the right hand and resist with the hand and arm. Then press the left thigh into the left hand, resist with the hand and arm. So it should feel like the left hip is trying to come towards your shoulders and the right hip is going away from your shoulders. Just this little bit of tilt in the pelvis. Let your sacrum stay on the floor, relax the low back, and just breathe there. You're just creating a little bit of resistance between the arms and the legs. One more breath. And then letting go, relaxing. Shake it out for a moment, or the nice way to relax the sacrum is knees fall together, feet are slightly wider than the hips. So this actually creates space in the back of the pelvis where the pelvic bones come into the sacrum. And then we're going to roll onto our left side. So when you get onto your left side, if you know you like a pillow or something under your head, please feel free to use that. You can put it right underneath your left cheek. I'm comfortable with my arm, so I'm going to use my arm. You're going to draw your legs up so that your shin bones are are parallel to your spine, parallel to the long edge of the mat, and your thigh bones are parallel to your spine. Bring the big toe side of the feet together. Keep the big toe side of the feet together. And then when you're ready, you're going to inhale, lift just the top knee. Call this one clamshell. Notice I'm not going way up and I'm keeping the feet together. I want to initiate some action in this outer hip. So I'm going to inhale, lift up, and exhale down. One of the tricks for this one, if it is sacrum that bothers you, and you'll know because this one might get you. If it doesn't get you, then it probably is more low back if you have discomfort there. Is that it's really hard for me to lift my right leg without my left side trying to contract and lift it. Because that left side is like on hypervigilant, right? It wants to do all the work. So I'm really working hard on this side to relax the left butt cheek. Say you're on holiday and just engage this right side, which is the weaker side. But you may find it just the opposite. And you're lifting on inhale and releasing. So one of the ways we can play with some of the somatics of feeling the muscles is, since this is my weaker side, I'm going to lift this leg up and hold for a few breaths, and I want to feel that contraction and give myself time to relax the left side. So let the right side stabilize and the left side take a little break. And I'm just breathing into that, lightly pressing the toes together. Now, if your right side is your tight side, you probably wouldn't want to do this. You want to focus more on release at the bottom of the exhale. But I'm going to focus on strengthening this side, releasing left side on the floor. Feel the earth underneath that left hip. Taking a few breaths there. And then letting the legs come down, back together. Taking a moment there to pause. The next one, your feet are going to stay together once again, but your knees are also going to stay together, and we're going to lift the bottom left knee, and it may not come very high. You can take your right hand in front of you to help to keep yourself from tipping over. And notice I'm trying to keep my right hip on top of my left and my right shoulder on top of my left. But what we don't want to do is press really hard with that hand. That's going to try to happen. But on an inhalation, lift the bottom leg up. And then exhale, come back down. I like to think of this one like, I call it skier legs. So I'm lifting the bottom leg. The bottom leg is now strong, that one that got to relax, and it's lifting the weight of the top leg. Inhaling and lifting up so you can make sure you're not pushing into your hand. Keep your arm relaxed. Use those muscles around the pelvis and release down completely. So this one, I'm activating that already cranky left side, And what I'm noticing is when I come down, I'm activating, I'm making it even tighter than it is. When I come down, I'm releasing it. I want to make sure it releases. Lifting both knees and slowly, and that's part of it too, is I can lift up and I don't want to crash down. I want to lift up slow. That's why I use my breath. Come down like you're resisting gravity. Slow release all the way. Once again, if you want to take a hold, you could hold it up. You're strengthening that bottom hip. Or focus on the release down here a little bit. Do one more round if you'd like, or hold. And then coming back down. This is just a little trick. You can rub the knees together, rub that top knee on the bottom knee. Just a little bit of a rotation for the pelvis. Feels good when I'm done. Sort of rubbing the knees together. All right. And then you can either roll through your front side or your back side. We'll be coming onto the right side body. You can use a pillow underneath your head or use your right arm. Important, remember your knees aren't back here. You want to bring your thighs all the way up so they're 90 degrees from your spine and your shin bones are parallel to the long edge of the mat. Just like you're sitting in a chair, 90 degrees. And the big toe side of the feet will stay together, even feel the arches of the feet. Now you're going to inhale, lift that top left leg, and exhale. Relax it down. And inhaling up. So this is my already jazzed up side, so I'm just going to go really slow and focus on that full release. And if it's not releasing, then I take an extra breath there. Just let it go. If this is your weaker side, then hold it up for an extra breath. Engage it. But you want to feel these outer hip muscles, call them the little glutes, slightly pressing the toes together. And there's no need to lift way up. Sometimes it's actually harder to just slightly lift, to just barely hover that knee. You're taking your muscles to different lengths and then engaging them. Lifting up on inhale, complete release on exhale. Opportunity here to hold it up if you're trying to strengthen it more. I like to lift it up and then slow release down. I can feel myself go through that point of contraction all the way down through the complete release. Which some days happens, some days it doesn't. That's okay. Now you're going to keep not only your big toe line together, but your inner knees. You can take your left hand in front of you just so you don't roll forward or back. So keep the shoulders and the hips stacked, the top shoulder and hip on the bottom shoulder and hip. And then on an inhalation, you're going to lift the bottom knee. And exhale and take it down. Imagine giving that left leg a ride. And I struggle quite a bit more with this side because it's weaker. So this is a lot more work for me to lift. And these are just things you can look at in your own body. Not because you're picking yourself apart. I jokingly say I'm finding my flaws, but in finding them, we can fix them. And what we can't fix, we accept. But waking up those muscles, the bottom of the right leg, the outer hip. You can hold it up for a few breaths if you want to work a little bit more on feeling that contracted state. Or drop it down, completely release. Lifting up. Just like you're skiing. You have to be cautious not to press into your hands, so watch you're not pushing into the floor. Keep that left arm relaxed. Blah. Certain tricks we learn along the way. Tricks that our body does that we may not be aware of, because it's, your body always goes to, as far as the muscles go, it turns to the first responders. Whatever works the most are the muscles that your nervous system are going to try to activate first. And that's not always good. One more for that side. And then let it go. Then you can just slide your inner thighs together a few times. That might feel nice. And relaxing for a moment. We're going to come up to seated next, so you can press into that left hand. Use the strength of your arms to come up. And if you're at home, if you're on carpet, do your best. If you feel like you're getting rug burns, this isn't going to work for you. But I want you to take your legs forward so you're not on your sticky mat if you're using a sticky mat. So I'm going to come all the way forward. If you want a little cushion or something underneath you, so if you feel like you're dropping into your low back too much, you can put that cushion right on the edge of the pelvis, so right at your tailbone. You'll feel it just sort of tilt your pelvis, so now it's hard for me to drop into my low back. And you could use that there. And I'm going to take my hands behind me because I want my tall spine. So let yourself come onto the sit bones, rock forward a little bit. Then you're going to take your legs slightly wide apart. So internal and external rotation are very important movements for the sacrum. I tend to feel those quite a bit. And you'll even notice when I do this exercise, because I use this as an assessment too for myself and for others. So you're going to take your legs just slightly wider apart. Feel your big toe side of your left foot. And as you exhale, turn that big toe side inward, so your whole thigh is rolling inward without bending the knee, and then drag it to the center. Again, if you're on carpet and this doesn't work, do your best. And then you're going to inhale, externally rotate the thighs, so pinky toe side down towards the floor, and drag it outward, just as far as you can go comfortably. Exhale, big toe side inward. Inhale, little toe side and outward. And even though it looks like all the movement is in my foot, I'm thinking of initiating this from my hip. And I can feel all around my sacral area on that left side. You can even close your eyes and stay present in it. We're not looking to increase our mobility. This can increase the mobility, but you just want to feel those muscles activate to draw the thigh inward and outward, that internal rotation and outward. And you can check yourself. So next time you're inhaling, notice how close you can get your pinky toe to the floor, how far can you go in your external rotation. And then next time you're the other way, notice how far you can go in your internal rotation. So for me on this side, I can get my big toe all the way to the floor. I've got pretty good, actually, too much internal rotation, because that's the side where the ligaments are a little bit overused, let's say. Stretched out. And I'm just going back and forth. So a nice easeful movement, like you're letting your legs swim. Take a few more. Should feel like a little work, though, for those thigh muscles in the hip. And this is all part of the gentle joint series, just opening up the freedom of movement through that hip joint. Let's do one more. Letting that left leg swim. And then relax. If you feel like you're falling into your low back, come back onto your sit bones. You can shift your weight back and forth on those sit bones. And now we'll do the right side. So the right side, I'm a lot more limited in my mobility. And I'm going to turn my thigh bone inward. That's inward versus this, right? You can see the difference here. Turn my thigh bone inward and drag it to the midline. So I'm not concerned with how far I can go. I just still want to feel the muscles. And that's my exhalation. Inhale, pinky toe side down to the floor. And externally rotating and rolling it out. Just dragging it out. I'm going to do that back. Exhaling, come to the midline, big toe down. Inhale, pinky toe, drag it out. And if you're not doing this to your breath, that's okay too. Just find a smooth movement. Oftentimes movements will get jerky because muscles aren't activating the way they should. So when you find those jerky spaces, go even slower. Go really slow through those. So I can feel a lot of resistance on this side in this hip. The muscles are saying, what are you doing? The other side likes to do all the work. We get to play. So I'm just going back and forth. And you might have those little conversations in your head. And you can notice for yourself if there is a difference in the range of motion, either in the external. My external is fairly equal, but internal. You got to go with whatever you have. And more about activating those muscles in the thigh and around the hip. Letting that leg swim. Tall spine. And then come back to the center. You can shake it out a little bit. Go ahead and take the soles of the feet together. So know that, I know Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together, is a big pose in yoga. This actually compresses your sacrum. So I'm going to do just some gentle rolls to stretch the muscles around the sacrum, but I don't necessarily want to come too far into a fold. I'm just going to roll around to stretch those muscles through the buttocks and the outer thighs. Just making some circles. And your feet might be further away from you. Oftentimes that's more comfortable. For me, I find that if I pull my heels in too close, there's too much going on in my sacral area versus keeping the feet a little bit further forward. So play with that, what's comfortable with that back area. And just making circles the opposite direction, like your body's just falling one way and then the other. This next one, again, is a little bit less somatic, but more in that gentle joint series of just waking or activating the muscles and creating freedom of movement in the joints. And we are going to come to all fours for this one. So if you find it's uncomfortable for you to be on your wrists, you can either make a fist, or you can take your blocks, or maybe at home it's books, whatever you want, and you can put your forearms on blocks and let your wrists hang. So that's absolutely fine too. I'm going to come onto my arms. I want you to bring your knees together. So bring your knees all the way to the midline so the inner knees are touching. And we're in basically a table pose, so my shoulders are underneath, or my shoulders are right over my wrist creases. And now we're just going to drop from one side to the other. So as you exhale, you can take your hands a little bit wider so you feel balanced. As you exhale, let your hips fall to one side. Inhale, come back to the center. And exhale, let your hips fall to the other side. And notice if you feel a difference. Can your hips fall a lot further? So for me, I can fall to the right side quite easily. Left side pretty tight. So I'm just gradually going a little bit further, but we're falling on the exhale. So I'm not pushing my hips. Just thinking, let gravity take the weight of the pelvis one way, and then coming back to the center on inhale. So the work is on the inhale, lifting back up. The ease is on the exhale, falling to one side. Just a nice side-to-side motion. You're going to get a little stretch to your waist and either side of the sacrum. Back to the center. Widen your knees apart and take your big toes together. If your knees aren't comfortable, don't press your hips too far back. Just do more of a side-to-side motion, but now make circles with the hips. Circling around. Again, if you can't be on your knees, then these ones may not be appropriate for you, or you can put a blanket underneath your knees. Making circles. And then coming back to the center, draw those legs in. If you like child's pose, you can take a child's pose. If not, take a moment, come back onto your back, hug your knees into your chest. We'll take about a minute to break. If there's anything else you need, we will be doing another seated posture next. So you might be in that child's pose resting. Just check in with yourself. Breathe into that area of low back and pelvis. So think of your whole circumference of your pelvis. You can breathe into the abdomen, the low abdomen specifically, wherever you're resting. We refer to the sacrum as the sacred bone in our body. And then you're going to work your way back up to a seated posture if you're not there. We're going to take our feet over to the left side, outside of the left hip. And this one I will do my best to instruct you with props. If it doesn't work for you, this may or may not be a good practice for you, but we're going to give it a go, and if you can't sit this way, that's okay. You're going to keep your left leg where it is and bring your right foot so that the right heel is on the front of the left knee, or right at the top of the left knee. So sometimes you're way imbalanced, you can't, you're already tilted onto that right hip. So what you can do if that's the case is take a pillow, a block, something underneath that right hip to lift up the right hip, just to bring, so now I have more of a balance in my hips. I'm not tipping onto that right hip, right? So you can put something underneath that right hip and see if that makes it more comfortable for you. I'm going to go without it because I want to be able to drop that left hip down, but option to put something underneath your right hip. First to sit, we call this the Z sit, so your big toe side of your left foot can be on the floor if that's comfortable. Otherwise, you can do just top of the foot to the floor. So notice that left leg is an internal rotation, the right leg is an external rotation. So when we were doing our swimmy leg thing here, right, that's basically the two positions, internal rotation, external. So this is my comfy side on internal. I'm going to take a moment, though, still settle in. And then you can take your hands to your hips. This is like what we call cat-cow movement in yoga. So as you exhale, you're going to bring your chin towards your chest, but press the center of your spine back, bring your shoulders forward, so making a cat-like shape to your spine. And as you inhale, bring your heart forward, chin forward. And exhale, take it back. So moving through that cat and cow motion, exhaling, feel your pelvis tilt back. Inhale, feel your pelvis tilt forward. And the thing to check is a lot of times I'll see people and it's just their neck moving. So maybe keep your neck still and focus on moving through the rest of the spine. That's the chest area and the low back and the pelvis. So that it's not, sometimes it feels like we're moving because we're moving our head. But just moving through the whole length of the spine, including letting the pelvis tilt back and forth. Keep relaxing the legs. Take a few more if you'd like. Always pausing wherever you need to. And then next time you come up, try to find that neutral spine where your ears are tucked right over your shoulders and your shoulders are over your hips. I'm not falling back, also not too far forward. Then you're going to take your right hand to the floor, somewhere just outside that right hip. You're going to want to use that hand for support. And then you can keep the left hand at the left thigh. So this is going to take us further into the internal rotation with that left hip. So my right hand's there for support. Now, as I inhale, I'm going to internally rotate that hip, which means it's going to lift up. And I'm going to drag my left hip and my left shoulder towards the front of the mat, or over my right leg. Then I'm going to exhale and sit back down. And inhale. Lift and reach. So I want to feel the glutes, all of those muscles in that back left side engage, and then release as I sit back down. You can let your head turn too. Take your time. You don't have to move to your breath, but move slowly and sweetly. So feeling that rotation once again. This one feels really good on this side for me. Sense it through your sacrum. And your head is just rolling along for the ride. Let's do one more there. And then what I like to do is take your left hand down. This is going to be a little bit of a rest. You can keep both hands on the floor with the arms long. You can take both hands down to the floor, forearms to the floor. You might bring your block in to support your head. Let yourself rest. If you can go all the way to the floor, do that. But don't force it. Now see if you can relax that whole left side. Release into it. Take a few breaths. And if you're on your forearms or further down than that, come onto your hands first. Use the strength of the arms to lift up. Walk your hands back in till you're all the way up. Then you can take the legs out in front of you. Might feel good now to just jelly roll the legs again like we did when we were swimming the legs. That can feel good. The other one that I like to do in between the two sides is feet to the floor. Give my legs a little hug and round my back and spine. You can just rest there, rock side to side. So either one of those in between. And then the second side. I might even show this with a blanket because that's what I like to use. So now we're going to take the feet to the outer right hip. And I start by just stacking my knees like if I was sitting pretty in a skirt or something. But then eventually I want to try to get the left heel up by the right kneecap. So my left shin bone is parallel to the long edge of the mat. And you can be on the big toe side of the foot. On the other side for me, that's really easy, or top of the foot, because this one for me, I don't have the same range of internal rotation. So sometimes I have to be on the top of the foot first, and that will make a difference. The other thing, remember, you can do is take a bolster or block, something underneath, so blanket can work too, underneath that left hip, just lifting it up a little bit so that my pelvis is more squared off. I'm not dropping into that left hip, right? So find that position for yourself. Just letting yourself relax into it. Feel the weight of the upper body fall into the pelvis. Notice what is in contact with the earth in the bottom of your body. And then we do that cat-cow motion. So as you exhale, your front body will contract in towards the chest, pressing your back ribs towards the space behind you. As you inhale, bring your heart forward, your belly forward, lift your head up. Exhale, chin towards the chest. So back body spreads out on the exhale, front body contracts. Inhale, front body spreads out, back body contracts. You may want to do what we did on the first side, which is instead of moving the head, it's nice to move the neck, but watch that it's not this happening. Sometimes we're just moving our head, right? So keep your head at that center space and see if you can really focus on moving the torso. And you may feel a little bit going on in there. This is my tighter side of internal rotation with this right leg. So I just ease my way in. And remember, we look at, can we still breathe in a way that's comfortable? Ask yourself, are you going to regret this tomorrow? Do you feel safe? These are all legitimate questions. Because we can feel sensation in our body. And what usually happens is if we've had a place of chronic pain, as I have, we right away label sensation as pain. It might not be pain. So are you still breathing away that's comfortable for you? What are you saying to yourself? If you feel scared or anxious, then that's a sign that you need to come out. But I can work my way through this slowly. And then settle with the ears over the shoulders and the shoulders over the hips. Take a moment there. And then the left hand is going to come to the floor for more support. Come on to the big toe side of this foot. So now you're going to take your right hand to your right hip crease. And as you're breathing in, think of squeezing the muscles in that outer butt cheek. So I can even do that first. Engage those. And then lift up and roll that thigh bone in. Drag your right shoulder towards your left knee, or towards the back of the mat there. And then exhale and sit back down. So I much prefer you to think of, as many of you know out there, not a pain scale, but a sensation scale. I'm going to make a movement for all healthcare to use a sensation scale instead of pain. Because as soon as we put that 4-letter word into our brain, it's like, oh no, we shouldn't do that. And that's not always necessarily true. To be able to move through discomfort, but breathe in a way that's still vital and healthy and not feel anxious, sometimes that's what we need to do to rid ourselves of these tight muscles. But you're listening to your body, creating that rotation through the torso and releasing. Inhale and reaching into the rotation. Exhale, release those muscles in that outer right hip. Inhale, squeeze the muscles in the outer right hip. Exhaling back down. Do one more if you'd like. And then you can take both hands to the floor, staying up with your arms long, because that might be plenty, just trying to relax there. If you want to go a little bit deeper, walk your hands out, come onto your forearms. You could take a block or something underneath your head. Even relax the feet. Notice the pinky toe side of the left foot, Big toe side of the right foot. Breathe into that sacral area. Remember Mr. Bones' demonstration for you. And then if you're not on your hands, come back to your hands. Use the strength of your arms to slowly walk yourself up. All the way back to the center. You can take the legs out in front of you. Once again, sometimes just swimming them in and out feels really good. Or feet to the floor. Rounding, giving your legs a hug, saying, thank you, beautiful legs, beautiful hips. We've got one more thing we're going to do, and this is so after, especially after that stabilizing through the sacrum that we just did, after balancing it, now we're going to stabilize more. And this is where you will want a block, a ball, or something between your thighs. So we're going to come back onto the floor. I'm going to demonstrate with a block. I'm going to come down, and the block is nice because it has different sizes, right? Small, I think you can go small, medium, and large. So I'm going to go small, and I'm going to put it right between my knees so my knees are as close together as possible. I'm going to come down onto the floor. You can come down first and then do it. I'm just showing you, and I'm going to begin to squeeze that block with my knees and then release. And that's it. I'm just going to squeeze the block and release. And you should feel those inner thigh muscles, your adductor muscles, squeeze and release. And for me, this feels so good right now. Squeeze those inner thigh muscles and release. So strengthening those inner thighs. Rest of the body's relaxed. You can lengthen your low back, let it rest onto the floor. So watch that we're not arched through the low back. Reach your tailbone forward. You're just squeezing the block and releasing. We're going to add to this just a little bit. Bring your feet as close together as they can be, squeezing that block, and then continue to squeeze the block. So you're going to keep those inner thigh muscles active, and then you're just going to slightly tilt towards the left, come back to center, slightly tilt towards the right. So you won't be able to go very far without your foot lifting up. You don't need to go far. You're just squeezing and just that little bit of a tilt. Keep the rest of the body relaxed, arms, head, squeeze the block. If you get tired, take a break. Those inner thighs might start to talk to you a little bit. But you're squeezing the block and just letting yourself rock. So it's going to limit your mobility side to side. It's not like you're going to go through a full windshield wiper. We'll do that next to relax. This is a really active windshield wiper. Remember in the beginning when we were doing that walk in place, like one thigh bone's coming forward and you're rotating your pelvis just a little bit. One more round if you'd like. And then take that block out. A couple ways to release. Now you could do that full windshield wiper. That might feel really good. Or because you've been using those inner thigh muscles, you might want to drop into the Baddha Konasana, soles of feet together. For me, that just takes me back into compression of the sacral area. So I'm going to just let my legs go side to side. But try both and see what is more suitable for you right now. In and out. So that's the first one. And the second one, if you only have one size, if it's a ball, we can do the same thing. But what we typically do then is go wider. So I'm going to now take this block into its widest position. And believe it or not, there's a big difference between this and this. And if it's too much for you, then go back to the first one. But your feet will be probably slightly wider than your hips now. You're putting that block right between the knees. And once again, you're squeezing the block and releasing the block. Just do that first. Squeeze and release. And just releasing enough that it doesn't fall, right? Squeeze the block and release the block. Feel all those leg muscles, especially the inner thigh. Rest of the body stays relaxed. And then once you've found that Relax for an extra breath. And squeeze that block. So activate those muscles and try once again to gently rock side to side. It's going to limit your mobility, but you can still move a little bit. Squeeze the block and let the legs go one way and then the other. And everybody's got their, I call it, it's like the magic pill of something that will help them to release. This one is it for me. It may not be for you. I remember when one of my teachers gave me this, and it was like, wow, that was magic for my low back. It just all let go. But it's also strengthening those inner thighs, making space in the low back. So as we widen the legs more, we're creating more space around the sacrum. And you're just rocking side to side. Your head can float with the movement. Last one. And then come back to the center. Another opportunity to flow through, just letting your legs fall through the windshield wipers. If you wanted to be still, you could let your knees fall together, or you can do the Baddha Konasana, that opposite. So this would be a counter pose, stretching those inner thighs, right? I like to just let the knees fall together, let the thighs relax. And be still, you choose. So, to end our grumpy sacrum practice today, yes, I do call it that, I like to put my sacred sacrum on a pedestal. So if you'd like to join me, if you have a brick, a block, a book, doesn't have to start with a B, but it could be a ball too, anything you want underneath you. Place your feet on the floor, and you're going to put this right underneath the sacrum. So we don't want it in the lumbar spine, you want it underneath the sacrum, supporting the sacrum. And then you can gently tuck your shoulders underneath you. Just placing your sacrum on a pedestal. And you can gently feel if you've got a harder surface like a block, you're going to feel that, that little bit of forcefulness or the density of the block or whatever it is underneath you. And I just like to rock it back and forth. But as I'm doing that, encourage that if the low back is really arched, encourage the low back to just start to fall down. So I know for me, if my block is too far up the back, so too far towards my shoulder blades, I can't relax the low back. So you may need to take the block a little bit more towards your legs to let that low back relax. And just rocking the pelvis back and forth. Like you're giving it a little ride. And feeling into the edges of the sacrum. Some other options from here, because this is a basically supported shoulder stand, and or supported bridge pose right now. You can keep your feet on the floor and just be still. Breathing into your abdomen. As you breathe into your abdomen, think of the sacrum on the backside. Or if you'd like a little bit more, feel the support of whatever's underneath you, and you can lift your legs up. And think of everything just flowing from the feet through the legs and down into the pelvis. Your legs could be extended, or you could drop the thighs towards you. You could take a Baddha Konasana. A lot of times we take the legs up and think they have to be straight up. No, they don't. You can take them wide. You can move them around. We just found all of that mobility, right? Internal and external rotation. You can bike pedal if you'd like, unless that's too much work. So just feel your weight resting on the sacrum. And just letting your legs move freely if they'd like. Just letting your legs play overhead, opportunity to move the toes and the ankles. You can bend in and out of your knees. Just feeling air on your legs. Does your legs feel light or heavy? And letting the weight of the bones just leg bones fall into the pelvis, into the sacrum. Sacrum is a really strong bone. It transfers the weight of the upper body and spine into either side of the legs and into the pelvis. Really important structurally. See if you can feel that as your legs are maybe floating overhead. Then before you come out, let the thighs fall towards you if your legs are overhead. Take your feet back down to the floor. You can pause there with feet on the floor when you're ready to come out. Take the block out from underneath you. And we'll get ready for our resting pose. If there's any other movements you need before that, please feel free to take them. It might be nice to put something underneath your knees, a little bit of support underneath your knees. And finding that space for yourself. You can rest the back and spine first we'll start from the head. Feel the base of the head or wherever your weight is resting. Maybe you have a pillow underneath your head. Let the weight of the head release. Feel the length of the neck, the back of the neck, and that natural curve in the back of the neck. If it feels good, you can gently move your chin from side to side, relaxing the neck. And sense the upper back and spine and the shoulder blades. You might even roll your shoulders around. Release the upper back. Gently press your shoulder blades into the floor underneath you. Coming into the center of your spine and the bottoms of the lungs. Maybe take a few breaths in the circumference of your rib cage, feeling the movement of your ribs with your breath. And notice the lower back, the lumbar area where you might feel that natural curve just like in the neck. You can breathe into your upper abdomen, breathing into that lumbar area. Letting the low back relax. And sensing all of the vertebrae above the sacrum relaxed. Send that same message of nourishment, rejuvenation into the sacrum. Allow the sacrum to feel how the whole spine is supported and relaxed into the earth. Allowing the sacrum to do the same. Think of that triangular bone. Feel the hips on either side. Letting the weight of the hips release into the earth along with the spine. Maybe just ending with some soft breaths to the abdomen. Soft, soothing breaths. Notice the position of your legs. Image or experience yourself, or invite yourself to breathe into your toes. Feel the soles of the feet and the tops of the feet. Let your mind's eye make circles around the ankles. Feeling the space of calves, shins, the circumference of your knees, backs of the thighs and the fronts of the thighs. Weighted or weightless, feel the whole space of your legs from the toes to where they come in to the pelvis. And sense the whole area of pelvis. Feel the front, the soft tissue in the lower abdomen, that open space filled with organs, organs of reproduction, organs of elimination, all housed inside of the pelvis, protected. Feeling the left side and the right side. Sense the bottom of the pelvis, your sit bones. Coming around to the back side, into that beautiful triangular bone, the sacred sacrum. Image or experience the sacrum as if you can breathe into your sacrum. It's not coincidence for me that when I am anxious or stressed, my sacral pain will flare. It took me a lot of years to admit that to myself. But the sacrum holds our Svadhisthana chakra, which is our space of emotional health. So many people may feel it as low back pain. Mine goes into my sacrum. But here's an opportunity to ask yourself, where are you emotionally? Is there something that you're either holding on to or not admitting to yourself or not accepting? And go back to feeling your legs. Feel how grounded your legs are, released. Then come into the sacrum. It's trying to stabilize your whole upper body. And there's a vulnerability in that job. So, as we go through these difficult times, my words for myself are grounded vulnerability. It's okay to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Stay grounded. Feel yourself in your body as you work your way through whatever it is, feelings, emotions, sensations that you may experience in yoga and beyond. As you feel ready to come out, you can wiggle fingers and toes. Find some joy in your practice through the movements of your body. Have gratitude for the little things, the way that your wrist will roll and your shoulders can make circles. Your eyes can roll underneath your eyelids, feeling that movement. Feel your breath, that vitalizing inhale and the purifying exhale. Remember that your breath is your invitation for life. If you'd like to come back up to a seated position, you can roll to your side first and pause, or stay right where you are. If you're in your happy space in your home, enjoy it a bit longer. Take my hands to the heart center. Thank you, whoever's out there, for being with me today. I miss you all. Namaste.